If you have a message that you want the world to hear, you can be passionate about it, you can be full of rage about it, you can be all of these things, but if you are not hearable, what have you gained? Which means you have to be in some sort of relationship with them.
Welcome to Created Creative. I'm Dawn.
And I'm Ruth.
We're using a new recording system. We should tell people.
Yeah, I hope it sounds good. I think so far, so good.
Let us know. Write in a comment. It's New Technology Week. I had a thing this week where I was trying to figure out a Facebook ad, and I got so frustrated. Like, there is a specific rage when the you know what I mean? It is so specific.
Right. The last time I had that, I was trying to figure out, I forget what it's even called, but ManyChat. Because it's being really difficult. And I was doing what it was telling me to, but it wouldn't let me.
I had a video of how to do it from a person. I messaged her, and she's not working only for me. You know, it's this large community, but she answered in like 15 minutes. And she didn't just tell me the next step. She said, "You want to make me an admin of your account and I'll look."
Oh.
And the amount of relief that she wasn't going to just tell me another thing that I may or may not be able to do or have to Google how to do.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. When it's hard, I was ready to just be like, I'm going back to word of mouth.
Yeah.
My whole business, I cannot deal. I'm over the Facebook ads. I'm out. Then I made a whole newsletter and Instagram reel about when you want to get to the next level on anything that you care about, where it's connected to mission in life or calling, having someone alongside you, not just doing the thing, but making you keep going on the day that it got really hard. Because otherwise, this one bump is making you give up your entire thing you felt called to next.
Yeah, it's reminding me of a few churches ago, we got one of those signs that lights up that's by the road that you can put displays on. And when we would have trouble with it, which wasn't frequently, but it was cool because the support, you could give them permission and they could take over your whole computer.
Oh, yeah. Do it. Please do.
And that was so nice because otherwise, if it had been super complicated to maintain, we wouldn't have felt as happy about our purchase.
Right. So they were smart in putting that technology into the sign.
Yeah. But it's just, go ahead, take it over, fix it. That sounds good.
I actually don't want to learn to do it. I'd like you to just, thank you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And so in both of those cases, well, technology especially, my thing is like, get the community before you even try and do the big thing. And some people are like, I don't know anyone who does that. Pay them.
Yes.
Like these people were from the sign company. You paid for the sign. It's fine.
Yeah.
Just get some humans.
Yep. It's totally worth it. I had two stories I was going to tell you that both of them I was like, oh, I have to tell Dawn this the next time I talk to her. So the first one was another Wednesday night. I was at another church out in the country. And as soon as I got there, I heard different people saying about me, tell her about the water. And then they're like, I will. And then another person who met me. And then they told another person, like, be sure you tell her about the water. And they're like, we will. And then finally, they were giving me a tour of the church. And it turns out this church, since people are in it so seldomly, if anybody wants to use the bathroom, they have to turn on the water in the basement, and the water is on a timer, so then it automatically shuts off. And I didn't need to use the bathroom, but they still turned on the timer in case anybody needed to use the restroom during the next hour. But isn't that funny?
I love it.
I had never heard of that before, water being on a timer for a whole church. And then my other story, you would have loved this. Okay, I just got back from Park Rapids. I was up visiting a friend, and we were walking around town, and I was remembering there was a coffee shop over around the corner. So we went over there, and it's just full of people singing. And they were singing just like when we went in, they were singing that old One Tin Soldier.
So like resistance songs of the Vietnam War was the theme, or what?
But they did sing the You Can Change Your Mind song.
Well, from this particular.
Yeah.
Because you're in Minnesota.
And then the barista was just saying, oh, they just get together and sing once a week. And it was people of all ages in this coffee shop just singing, and they sounded great. And it reminded me of how, like in Hallmark movies, they show things like that happening in small towns, but it never does.
And then it did.
But it actually did. So it was like the prime third space, people gathering together. And it was cool because, like, being in churches, we hear people sing together a lot. But if you don't.
People don't. Other than baseball games.
Yeah.
Someone was saying, you just never sing in groups if you're not in church.
Right. And they were having so much fun. They were singing Simon and Garfunkel, and then they were singing Delta Dawn. So I was like, oh, Dawn would love this.
I would. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Well, now we know which day of the week I need to visit.
Yeah, I'll have to research if it happens more often, but it was very cool.
Church gives you lots of experiences outside of Jesus,
Yeah,
like singing in a group.
singing in a group.
It also, did you hear Trevor Noah talking to Zoran Mandami?
Mm.
They were talking about how hard it is for Democrats to win because less and less people on the left go to church, and church trains you to have hope.
Oh my God.
And it's reminding you every single week things could be different.
Wow.
And there are tons of people on the left who truly believe this is it, too bad. Isn't that incredible?
That is so incredible. I need to find that and listen.
It's well labeled in his podcast.
Yeah.
You'll easily find it. But I cannot believe the degree to which I didn't realize other people are not hoping.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
could just independently hope, but it's not being trained into them every week the way church does.
Yeah. Boy, that just really explains so much about.
It does.
Aren't we lucky that we get to talk about and hear about hope all the time?
Yeah, it makes me think of when I was pregnant. There were a handful of people that were like, not close friends, of course, but people who said, wow, you're really brave. I would never bring a child into this world. And then you know what I said to them? What if she solves it?
Yeah, that's
right. Like some baby born somewhere will cure cancers. But I just have this inherently hopeful, I don't need her to solve the world to have worth. But just that I believe somebody's baby will make something better.
Yeah.
So now I think back to those particular people and their Facebook posts, and I think they often live without hope about the world.
Yeah, there's just an inherent pessimism that some people do have. And I never tied it into that, though. We do, though, you're right. In church, that's just baked into who we are.
It's baked in. We're always thinking about the whole world, and we're always imagining a better future.
Oh, thank goodness. I can't imagine.
I know. I can't believe how that has shaped my life and how I haven't ever realized the people around me. It's a crapshoot whether they have hope.
Yeah, that would be a hard way to live. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
So there's even hope when I'm so mad at technology, I'm ready to give up on all my dreams. And today's guest was all about hope. She is teaching students to think about a better world.
Yes, she's teaching students about a better world.
I would say even training them into making the world better. Enjoy, Regina.
Yeah. So, Regina.
We're so excited that you're here.
Yes. Thank you. Well, we like to begin by asking our guests to introduce themselves to our listeners. So, would you please do that?
Sure. My name is Regina Shands Stoltzfus, and I live in northern Indiana, Goshen, Indiana, to be precise, and have lived here for over 20 years, primarily because I moved here to teach at Goshen College, which is down the street from me.
Wow. Okay, I went to Valparaiso.
Okay.
So I've heard of Goshen College. Tell me what you loved about Goshen College and you wanted to teach there.
Yeah, a convoluted story, but here it is. Before working for Goshen College, before getting into higher ed, that was not a long-range plan of mine. I worked for a number of church organizations. My denomination is Mennonite Church USA. I grew up in an interracial Mennonite congregation. And one of my first sort of big girl jobs was working for the Ohio Conference of the Mennonite Church back in the late 80s, early 90s. Very part-time job doing peace education because my side quests were activism. And so sanctuary movement of the 80s, women's movement stuff. And I thought I can put together materials for churches to learn about things. Yeah. And so I did that, and I morphed into a number of jobs doing peace advocacy and education. And in the mid-90s, began collaborating with a person who became a dear friend and colleague and co-author of mine. And we created an anti-racism program. Nice. And so we started primarily working with church organizations, but branched out from that and did trainings along with other folks. We had a cohort of folks that we started doing this work with. And in the midst of that, I got shoulder tapped along the way, here and there, people saying, have you ever thought of higher ed? And my first responses to that were no.
I have not.
And then I spent 7 years as a pastor, actually at the church that I grew up in. They sent me to seminary. They said, we want our leadership to be seminary trained. And so I went to seminary and I absolutely fell in love with what my professors were doing because it scratched the itch for me of working in religious spaces, working in progressive religious spaces. I was very skeptical at first of going to seminary and thinking these people aren't going to get me, but I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking, what would it be like for me to do this? And so to come back around to the question about Goshen College. Goshen College is affiliated with the Mennonite Church. I knew people there. I had actually been there. I didn't graduate from there, and I spent a year of undergrad there. And because I had contacts there, sort of wormed my way over there, starting off as a part-time campus pastor and starting a doctoral program at about the same time. And I never officially candidated for my teaching position there. I just sort of hung around long enough for the department chair and the dean to say, looks like you work here.
And they're paying you,
so at
right?
some point, I stopped having year-to-year contracts and have a full faculty job. And at this point, I am full professor and tenured and all of that good stuff.
You have all the security everybody else does.
Yeah.
How is it to be a progressive religious leader in Northwest Indiana?
In the little blue dot that I'm in right now, which Goshen is, okay.
All right.
It's a small community. I used to laugh at them calling it a city. Don't tell my colleagues.
This is a podcast.
But now I've lived here long enough that I'm used to it. I'm originally from Cleveland, and the idea of driving 30 minutes to get somewhere was just like, that's just what you do. And now I'm almost horrified that I've become one of those people that, it's like I live down the street from where I work. But during lockdown of COVID, because that was such a politically contentious time for lots more reasons than there usually were, I was aware of being in this little blue dot in a very red state. Goshen City is the county seat, but it is surrounded by farmland and rural folks, and paying attention to where I drive and when I drive and all of those kinds of things are things that I have, as many people across the country, especially in the past 10 years, have just become more wary of. It's the thing that keeps me energized. I've noticed what it means to be in the classroom with a spectrum of experiences and beliefs and understandings of young people, 18 to 24-year-olds, that's an area that I swim in. And so being mindful not only of where they come from and the kinds of things they may have been taught on both ends of that spectrum, but also where their beautiful little brains are at the point of development that they're in, and what's my role in all of that with the things that I teach about.
So I have a copy of your beautiful book here, Resistance, Resilience, and Radical Love, Reflections on Blackness and Teaching Peace. And so this just came out, right?
October, yeah. So it's not even been in the world a year yet.
How are you taking care of this book and helping it meet the world?
Oh, I am not really very good at that at all. I have accepted invitations to go speak, around the book. So I have been saying yes to requests, but in terms of doing the whole, I guess I'm still in the window of being able to do a launch.
Totally. You can.
And so people are nudging at me, and we'll have an event. There's an event on my campus in April that I will be doing with a colleague who also had a book come out this spring that is very different from mine, but of the same ethos. This colleague is a business professor and is thinking about the ethics of business in the 21st century.
I wanted to hear you just say a little bit more about your first chapter is entitled Teaching Peace Means Studying Violence. That's powerful. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, just a few hours ago in my class on conflict and violence, we spend the first half of the semester talking about interpersonal conflict and building skills towards that. And then the second half of the semester, we're looking at systemic violence and institutionalized violence. And it's about this point, and today was the day of that. I was teaching about the Wilmington Massacre of 1898, which provides a good case study for looking at how systemic violence is able to maintain itself even when people resist it. And even when people know that it's wrong, like what keeps it rolling. And because we're 3 weeks into looking at systemic violence, and I just keep bringing them all of these things to look at, I set aside a moment at the beginning of class and say, this is the point at which I need to tell you that you may see me standing up here and leading you in discussions and bringing you this content about really horrible things. And that is the business that we're engaged with. That's not a surprise. The title of the class has violence in it. We've been talking about this, but I want you to know that when you see me standing up here talking to you about these things, and it may seem like I'm removed, well, I hope I don't come across as very clinical, but dispassionate. I want you to know, I say to my students, that I have worked hard to be able to do this, because you would listen to me in a very different way if my voice was shaking and I was visibly agitated about these things. I am, but in order for you to be able to listen to me, I need to put that aside. And when I put that aside, I worry that you think I don't care about it. So there's a lot going on. And the reason that I'm telling you this is because in a couple of weeks, when you are doing your presentations, which they will be, you will have to figure out, how do you stand in front of your colleagues and talk about these things that you've been studying for the past few weeks in a way that hits that balance of, it's important, you care about it, and you want us to hear you. You don't want us to be distracted by your emotions, but you want us to know that you care. So that's the place that I have arrived. And I needed to do that because I was being negatively affected by not only my own preparation for what I'm teaching, but then taking in their work. So they turn in their papers, they turn in their essays, they turn in their assignments. But then they also, because if we create these platforms where people can talk about terrible things, you become a possible container to hold
the terrible thing.
Those things. And so I hear from students about the conflicts that they're in or about the trauma that they've experienced. All of them, of course, are not going to make me their confidant, but some of them will. And so I needed to learn how to take care of myself in the midst of being that container for those kinds of things, including taking in and thinking about all the horrible ways that human beings can be to each other and to the environment.
Yeah. And so, how was the process of writing this book? Did you write it quickly or did it take you a long time? I'd love to hear more about how it was birthed.
Sure. It's one of the ways that I do lots of things is to gather little nuggets and put them away. But I had a sabbatical in the spring of 2020, and you have to have a project for your sabbatical. I guess that's true for lots of places, but you don't just get to unplug. So in my proposal, I said, I want to use this time to think about how to do this work in ways that don't harm or cause least harm. I want to study trauma. I want to study about how to care for trauma. And so I did that, and I had forgotten about this when I started writing the book, but at the very bottom of my proposal, because I went back and looked at it, I said, and maybe I'll find out some things that I can write a book about.
And here we are.
And here we are. So it was a lot of my really not very organized notes about, we got to the end of this class. What was that like for me? Where did we end up? How did I feel? How do I think students felt? But also the thinking and studying that I did around trauma and secondary trauma. Like that was what that area of discipline has learned first from first responders, right? That go into a place where people are clearly traumatized because of war, because of natural disasters, and just noticing what that meant for them. And then thinking really seriously about what that meant for my students. It started with my students. How do I get them to the end of the semester? I'm making them read all this stuff. How do I make it possible? Because what I was seeing was that students would stop coming to class or they would stop doing homework. And of course, part of that is that's what I did when I was a student. But part of it too was the content. For some of them, it was like, there's so much, I'm being honestly triggered by this. So I'm choosing to not engage. Sometimes they would tell me this and sometimes they would just disappear, right? And so felt very unfair of me as a peace studies professor to be like, no, you're going to read this stuff and you're going to love it. And you're going to do these assignments because that's what we're here for. So I can't do that. So part of it is, what do I do in my classes, in the way that I put my classes together, in the way that we move through this content together, to make it more possible for people to make it to the end, including me. Because one of the things I was discovering was at the end of the semester, they go home, I still got all these research papers to read. I don't have my community that we built to process that with. So some of it was logistical changes, less papers, more projects, less individual stuff, more collaborative work, less let's be in our heads all the time, and more somatic work. Let's be in our bodies. Let's do that. Of course, that also means you have to take things away, right? Because you still have the same 15 weeks in the semester, and I still have the responsibility of having them do things that I assess. And so thinking through how to do that, how to meet my professorial responsibilities so that I can legitimately say the work that they have done in my program for these degrees is in accordance with our accrediting body, in accordance with our mission statement, but also it's meeting these other needs that I have discovered are really important as well. So that's where the book came from, is me thinking about that question and then expanding out on that. And the subtitle of the book matters too, because one of the things that I think a lot about, the demographics of our student body have changed in the 20 years that I've been there, but it is still a predominantly white institution. And so thinking about, how am I hearable? And that's a phrase that my students hear me say all the time. If you have a message that you want the world to hear, you can be as passionate about it, you can be as full of rage about it, you can be all of these things, but if you are not hearable, what have you gained? And being hearable doesn't mean you shy away from your message or you trick people, like you reel them in with one message and then hit them with another. That's not what I mean. That's where a lot of your intellect and critical thinking has to come in, is you have to figure out how to be embodied the way that you are embodied with the message that you have, that you care very deeply about. And if you want other people to either understand and join you, and those are two different things, and everybody's not going to do both, they have to be able to hear what you are saying, which means you have to be in some sort of relationship with them. And so thinking about myself as a Black woman in a predominantly white institution in an era where 99% of what I teach is what some powers would just like, we don't talk.
Rather not have be talked about, right?
Yeah, we don't say those words. We don't talk about these things. We don't think about these things. So it's a great way to keep me and others on our toes, right? How do we keep doing this? I'm not ready to walk away from it. So what do I do in order to stay in it and continually invite people to enter into these conversations with me?
How does it change the students? Have graduates mentioned that?
Oh, absolutely. And the delightful part is, for some of them, I don't get a lot of students that push back at me. I do, and they have different ways of pushing back. But undergraduates are still figuring out who they are and all of that. I've had more problems when I've taught at the graduate level in other institutions as a visiting. I get more of that. But I do know that there are some students, but a number of my classes are in our core curriculum, in our gen ed. And I know when you are just enduring me.
You have a radar for it.
And some of those have come back years later and said, when you were talking about systemic racism or when you were talking about gender inequality, I was just like, this old lady, what does she know? And then I got out in the world and realized that, yeah, there are things. And so there's, like with all things, there's a spectrum. Some of them, I would never say this to them, but some of them I put in the box of, yeah, I got some haters in here. Some of them honestly have grown up in spaces where their experience has been, in my household, there was gender equality. In my neighborhood, I did not see these things.
Yeah.
So I think you're talking about stuff that happened when you were young, But our generation,
Yeah.
we don't have that stuff anymore.
They think it's not current.
Or we're working on it.
It's fine because we're working on it.
Fine. And then they get that job, or then they move to a different place, and it's okay.
Or open TikTok. I feel like we're seeing. But yes, your algorithm may be showing you something.
Exactly. So it's that piece of how systemic violence morphs itself to fit the era that it's in. That's the part that we really need to understand, because we do have to move along with it. We have to recognize it. But when you pull back, one of the reasons that I love historical distance, so I'm talking about something in class today that happened in 1898. But when you hear that story and when you look at it, that's exactly what's happening right now.
History doesn't repeat, it rhymes.
Yeah. And that's very helpful, because I would rather not bring in current events. Students can bring them in. They can recognize the patterns. They can talk about these. But when I do that, it's just too easy to be dismissed. You just have an axe to grind. So it's just easier all the way around if I reach back into the past and say, so I didn't make this up. Here are the citations. Here are the primary sources, all of these kinds of things. I like to call myself a fake historian. And I have enough colleagues that are actual historians that help me.
Right. They can back you up.
Do this work. But it's like, here's the evidence, and this is helping us understand how this stuff works.
And it's a theology credit?
So my terminal degree is in theology and ethics. And so I'm not teaching much in Bible and religion right now, but peace studies and Bible and religion are one department, religion, justice, and society.
But it's clearly in the ethics part. You're raising up critical thinking.
Yeah.
Is this your first book?
This is my first solely authored by me book.
Okay.
I have two other books. One is way back in the 90s that is co-authored. One came and one just a few years ago with my longtime collaborator, the one, Tobin Miller-Shearer, is who I co-founded the anti-racism program. And it's like looking back on what we learned. That book is called Been in the Struggle. And we jokingly say that the real title of that book is We Tried to Tell Y'all.
That's great. I'm curious, you talked a little bit about how you take bits and pieces and weave things together, but if you had to say like how long it took you to write this, what would you say?
I would say a year.
A year?
I would say a year. And I was overdue with it, because when I thought I was finished and was ready to send it to home and move to the next phase, it was August 2024. And I was just like, what do I do? Like, do I need to go back and add things? The presidential campaign was ramping up. And I remember being out of town and visiting with family. And when Kamala announced her candidacy and all of the rhetoric around that, and it was just like, oh my goodness, is this still true? Is this still right? Is this still relevant? And I will admit to having a huge dose of imposter syndrome. And I'm like, what are people saying? So it ended up that I sat on the manuscript for a few more weeks. I read it. I reread it. I did not write more things. I did not change things, but I just sat on it and thought, should I? So I finally sent it, and then they had it for a while. But the actual production of pulling together all of my notes and seeing if they made sense and figuring out what the order is going to be. And I was involved in a cohort of writers at To Home Publishing. So I had an accountability structure that helped me move through those. But then by 2024, when all of that stuff happened, I was like, the cohort was done, right? And I was like, oh, here I sit with this manuscript. I just talked about, do I need to add things or do I need to change things? But one of the things was, is this even relevant? Does anybody even care about this stuff anymore? Are we just collectively throwing up our hands? And I knew that that wasn't happening, but I also wasn't sure what the moving forward was going to feel like, especially around the attacks on DEI and history, like real history and all of that. And that was still unfolding, right? That was still coming. But as things started rapidly unfolding once the election happened, just remember thinking like, we're a private institution, so blessings to my siblings at public universities and the things that they went through. But can I still show up in the classroom the way that I've been showing up in the classroom? Or,
Right.
you know,
Because you're a private institution, as long as whoever the
mhm.
donors, the tuition paying students are still paying, then you teach to your integrity.
Right. But we did lose some of our federal funding.
Okay.
I don't know all the ins and outs
Yeah.
of that, but there are things that were on our publicly facing website that are no longer
Oh,
visible, just to not invite people
yeah.
to put us under scrutiny. And so I don't feel as fearful. A year into this, I still have feelings about things, but I don't feel afraid about teaching what I teach the way I teach it that I did in those first few months of the current administration.
I feel like people such as you who are equipping young people to think critically are the greatest threat to them.
Mhm. I think so. I think so.
Like, I want you to be teaching hundreds of people at a time. If you
Mhm.
can do it well.
Well, when I got the invitation to go to the University of Montana, and the invitation came from my colleague Tobin, who I've written things with, worked things with. He teaches history there. And when he invited me to come and be their speaker for Martin Luther King, my first question to him legitimately was, can y'all even still celebrate Martin Luther
in
King
Montana.
at the University of Montana? And he explained to me how it works. It wasn't a campus-wide thing, it was more a departmental thing, and community members were invited to it. And I was like, okay, I can roll with that. I'm honestly not interested in coming to a place where one of the jobs, so to speak, is to convince people of the relevancy of the things. It doesn't mean that I only show up in rooms where there's going to be warm fuzzies, but it does mean that there's a piece of this work that I'm not interested in, and convincing people that systemic oppression exists in the world is not part of it for me.
You're there to go
Yeah.
deep.
Yeah,
Once
exactly.
people believe and have looked at the
Yeah.
facts and realize.
Or at least are curious about it and willing to have an open mind to enter into.
Yeah.
The last line of your book says, let's work together for justice.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like to you?
Yeah, that looks like having people, not just my students, but at this moment in time, that's a group that I primarily think about. Understand that you don't have to have a job or a vocation that has the word justice in it. You can do whatever it is you came here to do, whatever it is you came here to prepare yourself for, to also learn about where is that thing not accessible to everyone who wants to have access to it, and why is that happening? And in the places where you find yourself having agency, what equipping do you need to be able to show up to work for justice? And so I try, especially in the classes where I'm introducing students to this. So they're younger, they're maybe taking this peacemaking class as part of their core curriculum, because they do have to take a peacemaking class. Whatever they study, they have to take a peacemaking class.
I love it. Mennonites, bring it.
And so most of them are not going to be in my program. I do manage to snatch a few of them here and there. They're going into business, they're going into art, they're going all over the place. And I've become more brave and more strategic in saying, you can take these things that we are talking about everywhere in the world. Because what we are doing together is understanding how human relationships work, how power works, how the misuse of power works, how access and denial of access work. You're gaining language around that, and I expect you to use it. And so I have learned in my years of teaching to think about early on, have them think about, what is that thing you're preparing yourself for? And how does this show up in that? How does this conversation show up in that? And for many of them, they've never thought about that before.
Yeah.
And so to push them towards thinking about, like in the conflict class that I talked about a little bit earlier, in the first half of the semester where we're talking about conflict and we're building conflict skills and we're learning about Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication, and I can just hear their eyes rolling in the back of the room. But in their first reflection paper that they write, one of the prompts is, what are the things in the profession you are preparing yourself for? What do people have conflict over? What are they fighting about? If you don't know, go find out, because
every profession has it.
Every place, every profession. And it's probably not about the thing that you're learning about. It's about how humans exist in time and space together. And that was a learning curve for me, to just always bring it back around to, or always try to bring it back around to, the thing that they are interested in, the thing that they, for my athletes, we're not a D1 school. We have sports, but you're not going to be famous playing your sport here, but you love it. And I love that for you. So what are the conflicts there? You are committed to being there. And I know y'all fight. I know there are conflicts. What's that about? And how can you use this little skill you just learned in class? See what it's like to change the dynamic of that. I don't hear a lot about them taking me up on that, but I do hear enough to know that they are genuinely shocked when it works.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's like that little technique that seems so silly when we're practicing it, because when you're learning a skill, you feel silly doing it. It actually opened up space to talk about this thing.
Yeah, it's so important. I think that your book and what you're doing is more important than ever right now, obviously. And I would like lots and lots of people to read this book. And so as you think about whether it's this project or something else you're working on, or maybe it's marketing, is there anything that Dawn could coach you on today?
The project that I'm working on that I don't have a contract for it. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. And because I don't have accountability to do anything with it just yet, it constantly falls to the bottom of the list of things that I need to do because people are going to ask me about it. I'm thinking about a next book that is looking at activism throughout seasons of life. And partly that comes from me, like every year, the space between the ages of my students and my age and life situation is that gulf gets wider.
Because they remain 18 every year.
They remain 18. And thinking about, they're like, no, and it's cool. And I want you to do that.
But I don't want to.
Some of y'all are going to have a mortgage one day and you're going to think twice about sticking it to the man. So what does that mean? Does that mean you give up? No, absolutely not. But it means you think about what is possible for me right now. What is possible for me when I'm not in a position to lose my job because of the activism that I'm doing. Right now, for many of them, especially the ones that are activist minded, right, their view, for some of them, not all of them, is that if you're not whole hog in, you're not down.
Yes, I run into that among young people. I don't have the volume of young people you do, but I do run into that. Yes, all for us.
Yeah. So thinking about what would it mean to just write about that, and maybe help people who don't live in my head think about that. That's my project that's brewing right now.
It sounds like you need accountability. Was that what I heard?
I do better when I have an accountability system.
Have you heard of Gretchen Rubin? She's an author and talks about habit styles.
Probably.
You can Google her. It's easy to pick up. But there are like obligers, there are questioners, there are rebels. So she has these habit styles. You perhaps are an obliger. No one's right or wrong. It's just something to know about yourself. Whenever you want to get something done, have someone expecting it. Just play into your habit.
Exactly.
Like, don't fight it. We're this far through life. Nothing's wrong. So I don't know whether that's another group at Tejon or a writing group there in Goshen or a friend on the internet you're checking in with every Friday. But what sort of thing do you need from people? Like, what is the accountability?
That is something that I have thought about before. And I do have like little built-in stop gaps, but I don't know that I use them very efficiently.
So what's the next step with this book?
One of the big steps that I just took was to organize, like I talked about earlier. I tend to just have all these things all over the place and just start putting them into one place so that when I have time and space to give to this project,
Yeah.
I don't overwhelm myself by like, well, where is
Right.
stuff?
So getting it organized is the step we're in?
Getting it organized is the step that I did.
Okay. So now you can grab a chunk and write a chapter.
Right. Yeah.
So can
Yeah.
you have a chapter by Good Friday? Like, how long do they take?
Oh,
I have no idea what we're talking about. Are we talking like 4th of July? Are we talking end of the year?
yeah, that I actually have not mapped that out. I have not said I want to have this done by this time.
So the map is next.
The map is next. Yeah, I guess I need a map.
How long does it take to map?
I don't know. Because this is honestly the thing that I squeeze in, between lesson planning and
For sure.
grading and going to meetings and all of
Do you
that.
teach summer school?
Yeah.
So are there gaps like before and after summer school or no?
I teach one class in the summer and it's online.
Slightly
It's asynchronous. So
Ooh.
I don't have to like I just I have to make sure everything works and I have to remember that I have things to grade.
Yeah, to remember that you're
Remember to-
teaching with flat.
Remember that I'm teaching. Remember to check my email, right?
So you could make a map before the school year ends this year
Yes.
that you'll have enough knowledge about your summer to make it line up with reality.
Yes.
So the map by what day is graduation? May something?
We have graduation in April and then we have a May term, which is a 3-week
Oh, yeah.
intensive.
Nice.
And so the 3-week intensive is that's the only thing that I'm doing. That's done by the 3rd week in May.
So by whatever, Memorial Day, you could have a map.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Who will you show it to on Memorial Day?
That's my other thing is that every time I do something, I'm like, this is terrible and no one wants it. So let's just put it in a drawer.
Well,
We hear this all the time.
yeah, we hear that a lot.
But what if we think you are uniquely qualified in your time and space to say something into the world and the whole human race is going to lose that thing if you don't say it? How rude are you to not say it?
Love that. I love that.
Do you want to send
Yeah.
it to Ruth on Memorial Day? She's very good.
Send it to me. Yeah.
I know we just met, but we do a lot of that.
I could do that, maybe.
This is just the map. No one's judging anything.
Judgment.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just
Great.
want you to know we have gotten one person all the way from idea to book just in this podcast. So
Okay.
we want to help people make things happen. We want everybody's ideas out in the world.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, how hard it is to make those steps, but then it feels so good once you've done it.
It does. And you would think that we've learned like it is possible and it works, but
Yeah, okay. Memorial
Okay.
Day map.
Yes. Expecting my email around Memorial Day, hoping to hear from you.
all right.
Did this get to the actual problem or did we go on a tangent?
No, I think that knowing how I work, but also knowing how I need to fit my work into, like that part of it was very helpful. Knowing that there is a real world where I'm also showing up for other things that need to get done as well. And so it's not letting myself play into that too much because I could always say, well, I have all these things to do. How could I possibly work on my own stuff?
Yeah.
But I need to.
Yay.
Yeah. I'm so thrilled that you could spend some time with us today, Regina. Thank you for your work in the world. It's very exciting to me what you're doing. So thank you for sharing about it.
Oh, thank you for reaching out. And when Angela told me that the book was going out into the subscription boxes, I love that. I
Yep.
never imagined that would happen. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yes, it was in the February box, and people around the country got it, and we're excited to get it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Created Creative.
We're so glad you could be with us today.
If you would like to talk more about living outside the box, living creatively, be sure and join our Patreon, and then you will find out the details of when we are going to gather and talk about how you can live more creatively.
I can't wait for that discussion. And go create something.
Go create something.